Denmark jointly are strengthening the Ukrainian air defense capabilities with the Trident system.
There's a kind of death that doesn't announce itself. No explosion, no warning, just a shadow passing overhead, and then nothing. Russian tank crews have started calling it the silence. They'll be sitting in their T-72 engine, idling waiting for orders. And then, without any sound of artillery fire in the distance, without any warning from their radars, the sky just opens up. To small parachutes descend. They look almost peaceful. And then the top of the tank erupts in a jet of molten copper, and everyone inside is gone. The weapon is called Bonus. It's Swedish. And until recently, it was fired from howitzers miles away. But the Ukrainians changed the rules. They strapped it to a drone. Now it doesn't need a cannon. It doesn't need a muzzle flash. It just glides down from above, drops its payload, and disappears. The two smart submunitions inside scan for heat signatures, lock onto the tank's engine, and fire downward through the weakest point. The turret roof. Russian counter-battery radars are designed to detect artillery fire. They listen for the boom. They track the ballistic arc. They calculate where the shot came from and fire back. But there's no boom anymore. There's no arc. There's just a drone, silent, invisible to the system, delivering death from directly above. And that's not even the part that should worry you, because what's happening with the bonus rounds is just a symptom of something much larger, something Russia didn't see coming until it was too late. On February 1st, Ukraine's defense minister sat down with Sweden's defense minister. The meeting was quiet, professional, the kind of meeting that doesn't make headlines, but the package they discussed wasn't quiet at all. Sweden and Denmark are sending Ukraine the Trident Mk2 system. It's a 40mm cannon mounted on the back of a truck. It doesn't sound impressive, but here's what it does. Russia has been sending waves of Jet drones into Ukrainian cities. Slow, cheap, loud. Each one costs maybe $20,000 to build. And Ukraine has been shooting them down with Patriot missiles that cost $1 per million each. You see the problem? It's economic bleeding. You can't win a war by spending $4 million to stop a $20,000 threat. Eventually, you just run out of money. The Trident Mk2 fixes that. It fires a round called 3P augmented, programmable, proximity. It doesn't need to hit the drone directly, it just needs to get close. The system locks on with radar, programs the shell mid-flight, and when it gets near the drone, it detonates into a cloud of tungsten fragments. Cost per kill, a few $100s. Sweden isn't just sending weapons, they're sending a message. We can do this forever. But here's where the story gets uncomfortable, because while Sweden is solving Ukraine's economic problem, Ukraine is solving a much darker one. In the last few weeks, a Ukrainian unit called Nemesis, the 412th Unmanned Systems Brigade, has been systematically hunting Russian air defense systems, not just any systems. The expensive ones, the ones Russia can't afford to lose. 10 systems destroyed, total value over $300 million. Among them was a Polyanity 4M command post, a Torem 2, a Panzer S-1, and the crown jewel, A1L12222 primer. Radar, you might not know that name, but Russian generals do. The primer was supposed to be untouchable, marketed as capable of detecting stealth aircraft, so advanced that Russia deployed them around Moscow itself. In 2023, Ukraine killed it with a drone carrying 10 kilograms of explosives, 100 kilometers behind the front line. Here's the thing about radars. When you destroy a tank, you've destroyed a tank. It's a loss, but it's isolated. When you destroy a radar, you've destroyed visibility. You've opened a hole in the network. And everything behind that hole, ammunition depots, command centers, air bases, becomes a target. Russia is facing a choice. It can't win if they pull air defense systems to the front line to protect their troops, their rear infrastructure, refineries. Military air bases sits exposed to Ukrainian long-range strikes. If they pull systems back to protect the homeland, their soldiers at the front are defenseless against Ukrainian drones and artillery. Something burns. And here's the part that should terrify Moscow. These aren't Soviet-era systems Ukraine is destroying. These are modern, the S-350 Vit, the Pantsir's one, the kind of systems Russia has been selling to other countries as proof of its technological superiority. Each one takes years to build. Each one requires trained crews. Each one is filled with imported components, and that's where the real problem starts. Because if you crack open an S-400 or an S-350 or a Pantsir, the systems Russia calls the best in the world, you'll find something interesting. 0.85% of the critical components are Western-made. FPGA guidance computers, sensor modules. The brains of these systems were never Russian. They were American, German, French. And then came the sanctions. The tap turned off, and Russia can't turn it back on. They do have domestic alternatives. Processors called Elbrus and Baikal. Homegrown chips designed to replace the Western ones. But there's a problem. Modern military radars operate on 28-nanometer technology, or smaller. Russian domestic production is stuck at 65 to 90 nanometers. That's not a small gap. That's the difference between a smartphone and a calculator. The result? Radars slow down. Detection range drops. Missiles miss. Systems freeze in the cold. Russia turned to China. Beijing happily sells them electronics by the shipload. But here's the cruel detail. They're not military grade. They're civilian components. Parts meant for refrigerators, toys, consumer electronics. Field reports say that Pantsir and Tor systems repaired with Chinese parts are failing in the field. Circuits burn out from vibration. Systems freeze at -40 degrees Celsius. Reliability collapses and production. Russia can build maybe 2 to 4 S-4000 batteries per year. Nemesis unit destroyed 10 systems in a week. You do the math. So what does Russia do when it can't build new systems fast enough? It cannibalizes the old ones to repair one broken S-300. Russian engineers dismantle another working S-300 for parts. There are no spare parts. The stockpiles are gone. The supply chain is dead. Russia's air defense network is turning into Swiss cheese. It looks solid from a distance, but up close, it's full of holes, and Ukraine sees every single one. That's why Storm Shadow missiles are slipping through. That's why refineries are burning. That's why command centers hundreds of kilometers from the front are getting hit. It's not that Ukrainian missiles are invisible. It's that Russia's eyes are going blind. Vladimir Putin knows this. That's why he pivoted to a different strategy: energy terrorism. If he can't stop Ukraine's drones, maybe he can freeze the country into submission. Russia has spent its dwindling missile stockpiles, hitting power plants, transformers, heating infrastructure, but there's something Putin didn't account for. Sweden announced another support package. This one isn't weapons. It's 1 billion Swedish kronor for energy infrastructure. While Russia spends millions on missiles to destroy a power plant, Sweden sends the money to rebuild it. 0.600 million kronor to Ukraine's energy fund, 400 million to the UN development program, spare parts, generators, heating units, everything Ukraine needs to repair what Russia destroys. Here's the irony. Russia can't find chips to fix its own air defense systems, but Ukraine, thanks to Sweden, can repair its power grid faster than Russia can destroy it. One side is rotting in technological scarcity. The other has the financial backing to rebuild. Overnight, Putin's dark strategy isn't just failing, it's backfiring. So let's zoom out for a second. This war started with Russia projecting invincibility, the second largest military in the world. Endless reserves, cutting-edge technology. But what we're watching now is the collapse of that myth in real time. Ukraine isn't winning because it's stronger, it's winning because Russia was never as strong as it claimed to be. The air defense systems were built on Western chips Russia can no longer access. The production lines can't keep up with the losses. The stockpiles are being cannibalized just to keep the lights on. And the cost curve of the war has completely reversed at the start. Ukraine was spending millions to hit cheap Russian targets. Now, Ukraine is using $500 drones to destroy $130 million air defense systems. It's using Swedish guns that cost pennies per shot to stop Russian drones. It's rebuilding faster than Russia can destroy. This is what sustainability looks like. But here's the question no one's asking yet. What happens when the Russian people figure this out? For years, the Kremlin's unspoken deal with its citizens was simple. We keep you safe, you stay quiet. But now, drones are hitting Belgorod, Rostov, even Moscow. The S-400 systems that were supposed to protect the capital are being destroyed 1,000 kilometers away. And Russian citizens are starting to ask a question they were never supposed to ask. Can the state actually protect us? When a Russian soldier sees the wreckage of a Taurus-2, he's not just seeing a broken radar. He's seeing the myth of invincibility turning to ash. Sweden's Trident systems will start arriving soon. The Meteor missile, the one that makes Russian pilots call it the no-escape zone, is being quietly discussed behind closed doors. The flying artillery concept is spreading, and Russia's air defense network is collapsing under its own contradictions. Putin can't replace what he's losing. He can't outproduce what Ukraine is destroying, and he can't hide the truth forever. Because the war isn't just being fought on the battlefield. It's being fought in the space between what the Kremlin says is true and what Russian soldiers can see with their own eyes.